At 11:43 on the morning of September 16, 1943, Major Gregory Boyington pulled his F4U Corsair into a climbing turn above Balalay Island, watching 6 Japanese Zeros through a gun sight he could barely focus on. 35 years old, 3 years past fighter pilot prime, nursing a hangover that made his vision swim. The Navy had rejected him. The Flying Tigers had fired him. The Marine Corps gave him one last chance. Command a squadron nobody else wanted. 28 pilots, every one of them a washout, a disciplinary case, or a replacement nobody trusted. Command called them the Black Sheep. The Japanese had air superiority over Rabaul. In the past month, they had shot down 47 American planes. Boyington's mission: take his squadron of rejects and break the Japanese stranglehold on the Solomon Islands. The brass gave him 8 weeks before they disbanded the unit. That morning over Balalay, drunk or not, Boyington was about to prove why misfits make the most dangerous enemies. If you want to see how a pilot the military tried to throw away became the deadliest ace in Marine Corps history, hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories like this. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Boyington. The Solomon Islands campaign had been grinding since August 1942. Guadalcanal was secure by February 1943, but Japanese air power remained dominant from their fortress at Rabaul, 400 miles northwest. Rabaul housed 300 aircraft, 97,000 troops, and the best fighter pilots Japan had left. American losses were unsustainable. The Navy needed fighter escorts for bombing raids, but conventional tactics were failing. Japanese Zeros could outturn American planes. They climbed faster, dove steeper, and their pilots had been fighting since 1937. American fighter doctrine emphasized formation flying, altitude advantage, coordinated attacks, by the book, safe, predictable, and the Japanese were slaughtering pilots who followed it. Gregory Boyington had never followed the book. Born in 1912 in Idaho, wrestler in college, joined the Marines in 1935. He was a natural pilot, gifted with spatial awareness that bordered on precognitive. But he drank, heavily. Gambling debts, bar fights, insubordination. The Navy tried to kick him out twice. In 1941, Boyington resigned from the Marines and joined the Flying Tigers in China, mercenary pilots fighting for Chiang Kai-shek. He shot down 6 Japanese planes in 7 months, then got fired. Claire Chennault, the Flying Tigers commander, called him the best natural pilot he'd ever seen and the worst disciplined. Boyington returned to the States in 1942. Broke, divorced, blacklisted. The Marine Corps was desperate enough to take him back. By September 1943, Boyington had been shuffled through 3 squadrons. Nobody wanted him. Too old, too unstable, drank on duty. Then Major General Ralph Mitchell had a problem. Mitchell commanded Marine Aircraft Group 11, and he had 28 pilots scattered across different units, all of them problematic. Some had failed training standards. Some had personality conflicts with commanders. Some were replacement pilots nobody trusted because they were untested. Mitchell needed someone to take these misfits and turn them into a functional squadron. Mitchell needed someone who wouldn't care about their records, someone the other squadron commanders wouldn't fight over losing. Mitchell gave the job to Boyington. The unit had no official designation. The pilots called themselves VMF 214. Boyington called them the Black Sheep. The squadron assembled at Munda Airfield on New Georgia Island in early September. 28 pilots, 27 F4U Corsairs. The Corsair was the newest fighter in the Pacific, faster than the Zero, more heavily armed, but also harder to fly. The Corsair had a massive 2,000 horsepower engine and a 13-foot propeller. The engine created so much torque on takeoff that inexperienced pilots ground looped and crashed. The long nose blocked forward visibility during landing. Carrier pilots called it the ensign eliminator. The Navy had rejected it for carrier use. The Marines took it because they operated from land bases, and because they had no choice. Boyington looked at his squadron and recognized something the brass had missed. These weren't bad pilots. They were pilots who thought differently, who resented authority, who wouldn't follow tactics that got them killed. Exactly like him. Boyington's first briefing lasted 6 minutes. No formation flying, no altitude doctrine, no coordinated attacks. Each pilot would fight independently, using the Corsair's strengths, speed, and firepower. Dive on the enemy, make one pass, extend away, climb back to altitude, repeat. Never turn with a zero, never slow down, and absolutely never hesitate. One pilot asked about the tactical manual. Boyington said the manual was written by officers who had never been shot at. Another pilot asked about radio discipline. Boyington said, talk when you need to, shut up when you don't. A third pilot asked about formation positions. Boyington said, stay alive and kill Japanese. That's the formation. The squadron flew its first mission on September 14, 1943. Bomber escort to Balale Island. 18 Corsairs, Boyington leading. The Japanese sent up 40 Zeros. American doctrine called for the fighters to stay with the bombers, maintain formation, protect the mission. Boyington ordered his pilots to break formation and engage. The black sheep scattered across the sky, each pilot picking targets, diving, firing, extending, climbing. Chaos by manual standards, devastation by results. The squadron shot down 11 Zeros that day. One black sheep pilot was killed. The bombers completed their mission. Navy Command was furious. Boyington had violated protocol, abandoned the bombers, created a tactical disaster. Except the bombers hadn't been touched, and 11 Japanese pilots were dead. Mitchell told Navy Command to shut up and let Boyington work. 2 days later, September 16th, Boyington led a fighter sweep over Balale. No bombers to protect, just 20 Corsairs hunting Japanese fighters. This was Boyington's preferred mission, pure fighter-to-fighter combat. The Japanese responded with 60 Zeros. Boyington saw them first, 6,000 feet below, climbing toward the Corsair formation. Standard American doctrine called for maintaining altitude advantage, coordinated diving attacks. Boyington nosed over and dove alone. His wingman followed. Then the entire squadron followed. 20 Corsairs in individual dives, each pilot picking a target. Boyington's Corsair accelerated past 400 miles per hour. The Zero he was chasing tried to turn. Boyington fired a 2-second burst from 200 yards. 6.50 caliber machine guns, 4,800 rounds per minute combined. The Zero disintegrated. Boyington pulled up, rolled inverted, spotted another Zero attempting to dive away. He rolled back, dove steeper, close to 100 yards, fired. The second Zero caught fire and spun into the ocean. At 11:43, Boyington pulled out of his second dive and found himself alone at 8,000 feet, 6 Zeros above him, climbing. His airspeed had bled off to 220 miles per hour. The Corsair was slow, vulnerable. The Zeros were faster at this speed, more maneuverable. Boyington should have extended away, used the Corsair's superior speed to escape, climbed back to altitude, re-engaged. That's what the manual said. Boyington instead firewalled the throttle and climbed straight into the 6 Zeros. The lead Zero pilot assumed Boyington was breaking off, diving away. When the Corsair climbed instead, the Zero pilot hesitated. Just a second. Boyington closed to 150 yards and fired. The third Zero fell. The other 5 Zeros scattered. Boyington's wingman rejoined him. Together, they climbed back to 12,000 feet. Below them, the sky was full of burning aircraft. The Black Sheep had shot down 16 Zeros. 0 American losses. Navy Command demanded another investigation. Boyington's tactics were reckless, undisciplined, unsustainable. Mitchell pointed at the numbers. 27 Japanese planes destroyed in 3 days. 0 American pilots lost. Maybe the manual was wrong. The investigation was dropped. The Black Sheep continued flying. Over the next 4 weeks, the squadron flew 84 combat missions. They destroyed 57 confirmed Japanese aircraft and damaged another 30. American intelligence estimated the actual number was closer to 90. The Japanese began avoiding areas where the Black Sheep operated. Boyington personally shot down 14 planes during this period, bringing his total to 20, counting his Flying Tigers kills. The Marine Corps ace record was 19. Boyington needed 6 more to tie Joe Foss and tie the overall American record of 26 held by Eddie Rickenbacker from World War I. But the squadron was exhausted. Pilots were flying 2, sometimes 3 missions per day. Malaria, dysentery, and dengue fever hospitalized half the unit. Boyington himself was flying with a fever that spiked to 104 degrees. He lost 20 pounds. His hands shook so badly he could barely grip the control stick. And he was still drinking, sometimes a bottle of whiskey the night before a mission, sometimes during missions, a flask strapped to his leg. His crew chief found him passed out in the cockpit twice. Mitchell ordered Boyington grounded. Boyington ignored the order and kept flying. On October 17, 1943, Boyington led a mission to Kahili Airfield, 200 miles northwest of Munda. 24 Corsairs against an estimated 70 Japanese fighters. The Japanese had changed tactics. Instead of engaging immediately, they stayed high, waited for the Corsairs to commit, then dove with altitude and speed advantage. Boyington recognized the trap. He ordered his pilots to orbit at 15,000 feet, refused to dive. The Japanese stayed at 18,000 feet. For 20 minutes, both sides circled, waiting. Boyington's fuel was running low. He had maybe 10 minutes before he needed to turn for home. The Japanese knew this. They were waiting for the Americans to run out of fuel and be forced to break off. Then they would chase. Boyington made his decision. He broke radio silence and called for Navy bombers to attack Kahili. The Navy said negative, no bombers available. Boyington said he had 24 fighters orbiting Kahili with nothing to do. Send bombers or he was aborting the mission. 10 minutes later, 6 Navy dive bombers appeared. The Japanese immediately dove to intercept the bombers. Boyington dove after the Japanese. The Black Sheep got between the Zeros and the bombers. In the next 8 minutes, the squadron shot down 12 Zeros. Boyington got 2. The bombers hit Kahili and destroyed 14 aircraft on the ground. 0 American losses. Navy command was apoplectic. Boyington had called in bombers without authorization, risked valuable aircraft, exceeded his mission parameters. Mitchell told them the mission had destroyed 26 Japanese aircraft for 0 American casualties, and maybe they should promote Boyington instead of court-martialing him. The Navy promoted him to lieutenant colonel. By December 1943, Boyington had 24 confirmed kills, 2 short of the record. The Black Sheep had flown 94 missions, shot down 94 confirmed aircraft, damaged another 50. The squadron was scheduled to rotate back to the States in January. Boyington had 6 weeks to get 2 more kills. The pressure was immense. Every mission, journalists followed Boyington, asking about the record. Every briefing, his pilots asked if today was the day. Boyington started flying alone, solo missions without wingmen, hunting for targets. Mitchell ordered him to stop. Boyington kept flying. On December 23, 1943, Boyington was flying a solo patrol near Rabaul when he spotted a lone Japanese bomber, a Betty, flying at 6,000 feet. Easy target. Boyington dove, close to 400 yards, fired. The Betty caught fire and went down. Kill number 25. 1 short. Boyington climbed back to 12,000 feet and saw something that made him freeze. 6 Zeros, high and fast, diving on his position. They had used the Betty as bait. Boyington was alone, low on fuel, no altitude advantage, no wingman. He nosed over and dove, pushed the Corsair past 450 miles per hour. The Zeros couldn't match that speed. Boyington extended east toward American lines, leveled off at 500 feet above the ocean. The Zeros gave up the chase. Boyington landed at Munda with 40 gallons of fuel remaining. His crew chief asked what the hell he was thinking flying alone. Boyington said he was thinking about 26. Christmas Day, 1943, the Black Sheep flew their final scheduled mission, bomber escort to Rabaul. 20 Corsairs, Boyington leading. The Japanese sent up 50 Zeros. Boyington saw them climbing from the south, 10,000 feet below. He ordered the squadron to maintain formation, stay with the bombers. Then he broke formation and dove alone. His wingman, Captain George Ashman, followed. The 2 Corsairs dove through the Japanese formation. Boyington fired at a Zero from 300 yards. The Zero exploded. Kill number 26, tied record. Boyington pulled up, rolled, looked for Ashman. Ashman was gone. Boyington scanned the sky, saw Ashman's Corsair in a flat spin, smoking, heading for the ocean. 4 Zeros were chasing him. Boyington dove after them.
The Zeros saw Boyington coming and scattered. Ashman's Corsair hit the water, no parachute. Boyington circled the crash site. No debris, no oil slick, nothing. Ashman was gone.
Boyington climbed back to altitude and rejoined the formation. The bombers completed their run. The squadron turned for home. Boyington had tied the record. His wingman was dead. The Black Sheep landed at Munda at 1400 hours. Boyington walked to his tent and drank a bottle of whiskey. He didn't attend the debrief. He didn't talk to the journalists. He sat in his tent with the bottle and thought about Ashman. 26 kills. Cost, one good pilot who had followed him into a bad decision. The record felt like a bill. The squadron was scheduled to rotate stateside on January 4th, 1944. Boyington had 10 days left in combat. Mitchell ordered him grounded, told him to rest, prepare for the trip home. Boyington requested one more mission. Mitchell said no. Boyington went to Vice Admiral Mark Mitcher, commander of the Solomon Islands Air Forces. Mitcher wanted to know why Boyington was willing to risk the record. Boyington said it wasn't about the record. It was about finishing what he started. Mitcher approved one final mission, fighter sweep over Rabaul, January 3, 1944. At 0600 on January 3rd, Boeing 2 led 12 Corsairs northwest toward Rabaul. The Japanese knew the Black Sheep were leaving. They also knew Boyington was one kill from breaking the record. Rabaul sent up 70 Zeros, the largest Japanese response in 2 months. Every experienced pilot they had. Boyington saw them at 0647, climbing from the north, 14,000 feet below. He ordered the squadron to maintain altitude, engage only if attacked. Then he nosed over and dove, alone, again. This time, nobody followed. Boyington dove through the Zero formation, picked the trailing aircraft, fired a 4-second burst from 250 yards. The Zero caught fire. Kill number 27. New record. Boyington pulled up and found himself surrounded by 20 Zeros. They had been waiting. The lone Zero had been bait. Boyington's Corsair was slow, out of position, 60 miles from American lines. The Zeros closed from all sides. Boyington tried to dive. A Zero got on his tail, fired. 20mm cannon rounds hit Boyington's Corsair. The engine exploded. The cockpit filled with smoke. Boyington bailed out at 2,000 feet. His parachute opened. He hit the water at 0653. The Zeros circled above him. One of them dove, strafed the water near Boyington. A second Zero dove, did the same. They were toying with him. Boyington treaded water, waiting for the bullets. Then he heard a different inton sound. A Japanese submarine surfaced 200 yards away. The Zeros waggled their wings and flew off. The submarine crew pulled Boyington aboard. He had survived. He was now a prisoner of war. For 20 months, Boyington was held in Japanese POW camps, Ofuna, then Omori, both near Tokyo. The Japanese knew who he was, the ace with 27 kills. They interrogated him weekly, wanted tactical information, American fighter doctrine, weaknesses in the Corsair. Boyington gave them nothing. They beat him, broke 3 ribs, dislocated his shoulder twice. He still gave them nothing. Other prisoners asked how he endured it. Boyington said he'd survived worse hangovers. The guards at Omori were particularly brutal. Prisoners were forced to stand at attention in freezing weather for hours. Food was rice mixed with fish heads, sometimes seaweed, 600 calories per day. Boyington's weight dropped to 110 pounds. He developed beriberi, dysentery, and malaria recurrence. By August 1945, he could barely walk. Guards told him daily that American pilots were being shot down by the hundreds, that Japan was winning, that the war would last years. Boyington didn't believe them. He could hear American B-29s flying over Tokyo every night. Something was changing. On August 15, 1945, the guards at Omori disappeared. No announcement, no explanation. The prisoners waited. On August 29th, American Navy aircraft appeared over the camp. One of them dropped a canister with a message. War over. Japan surrendered. Hold position. Relief coming. Boyington was evacuated on August 30th. He weighed 108 pounds. His hands had permanent tremors from malnutrition. His teeth were loose, but he was alive. Boyington returned to the United States on September 12, 1945. The Marine Corps promoted him to colonel. President Truman awarded him the Medal of Honor on October 5th. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism above and beyond the call of duty." The medal ceremony lasted 12 minutes. Boyington wore his dress blues. They hung loose on his frame. He still weighed 125 pounds. Journalists asked what it felt like to be a hero. Boyington said he didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a guy who survived when a lot of better men didn't. The Marine Corps retired Boyington in 1947. He was 35 years old, too old to fly fighters, too broken to command. He moved to Los Angeles, tried to find work. Nobody wanted to hire a washed-up fighter pilot with a drinking problem. Boyington worked as a beer salesman, a wrestling referee, a tire salesman. He drank more. Married his third wife in 1949, divorced her in 1951. Married his fourth wife in 1953. The marriages failed because Boyington couldn't stop drinking and couldn't stop talking about the war. He wasn't haunted by what he'd done. He was haunted by what he'd survived when others hadn't. George Ashman, his wingman, who died on Christmas Day. The 28 pilots of the Black Sheep, 8 of whom were killed in action. The men in the POW camps who didn't make it to August 1945. In 1958, Boyington wrote a memoir, Ba Ba Black Sheep. The book sold poorly. It was too honest. Boyington described his drinking, his gambling, his failures as a husband and father. He described the fear before missions, the guilt after kills, the randomness of survival. Readers wanted heroes. Boyington gave them a man. The book went out of print in 1961. Then television found him. In 1976, NBC produced a series based on Boyington's memoir, also called Ba Ba Black Sheep, later renamed Black Sheep Squadron. The show ran for 2 seasons, 37 episodes. It turned Boyington into a folk hero. The drinking, the insubordination, the maverick tactics, all sanitized for primetime. Boyington hated it. He told interviewers the show made him look like a clown. But the show paid royalties. For the first time in 30 years, Boyington had money. He stopped drinking in 1979, stayed sober until he died. Gregory Pappy Boyington died on January 11, 1988, in Fresno, California. He was 75 years old. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. His headstone lists his rank, his decorations, and his record: 27 confirmed kills. The F4U Corsair he flew during his final mission, tail number 86, was never recovered. It sits somewhere at the bottom of the Pacific near Rabaul. Most of the Black Sheep Squadron's aircraft were scrapped after the war. One Corsair that Boyington flew during training is preserved at the National Museum of Naval Aviation in Pensacola, Florida. It sits in a hangar with a placard describing the Black Sheep Squadron. Most visitors walk past without stopping. It looks like any other vintage fighter. Dark blue paint, folding wings, bullet holes patched and painted over. But it's not just any fighter. It's the plane that proved misfits could outfight elite pilots if you stopped forcing them to follow rules that got them killed. The plane that broke every tactical doctrine and shot down 94 enemy aircraft in 94 missions. The plane that showed the Marine Corps that sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the pilot who follows orders, but the pilot who questions why the orders exist in the first place. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor and hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube to show this story to more people who need to hear it. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because we're bringing you forgotten stories like this every single week. Real people, real heroism, real cost. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Japan? Our community stretches across the entire world. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Tell us if you've ever felt like a misfit who had something to prove. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Gregory Boyington and the Black Sheep don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.